Hi, everybody. My name is Noor. Thank you for tuning in to Actually Caucasian. Today, I have an interview with a special guest. His name is Tamer. Um, he's our first adult. Of course, I had my niece. She's from California, but he's our first adult guest from California. He's Circassian, and I'm very excited to talk to him. I've known him pretty much the whole time that I've lived in California, give or take. Very sweet gentleman. Sorry, Tamit, if that's embarrassing. I'm excited to talk to him. We have so many interesting things to come up in our conversation. I personally find Tamer so funny and such a joy to talk to, so I can't wait to share that experience with you guys. I'm just waiting for him to sign on. As always, if the internet connection poops out, I'll just reconnect and we'll keep our conversation going. He just signed on, so let me go ahead and add him. Invite. All right. Okay, hopefully Tamer's internet connection is on point. I'm sure that it is.
Mr. Tamer. There we go.
Hey!
Alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
Good, good. Long time no see. Well, I don't know. Does it count as long time no see since we're not in person?
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
This counts. Come on.
this
This
counts.
counts. It's
Yeah,
2022.
yeah. But we'll do the other in person soon too.
Yeah,
Ciao.
inshallah. I hope so, man. I miss California so much.
Yeah, we've been coming back doing some events, so you missed the last
I
one. You need
know.
to
My
catch up.
my FOMO was through the roof with that awesome picnic. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. But it is what it
Next,
is.
we need a rematch,
I know.
so there'll be a next time.
Totally. I hope so. You're a man of your word.
I try.
All right. So, Tamit, thank you for joining me here. I appreciate it so much. We had a few people. We had Shan call you the man, the myth, the legend, you know.
I feel like people are taking my whole expose joke a little too seriously.
Come
Everyone's like,
on.
how did she bribe you? How did she convince you? So I'm here.
Just nice words. And I badgered him relentlessly.
That's literally what I said. She asked nicely and I gave in. I said I'm gonna push over and I gave in.
There you go. I appreciate it, Tamid. So let's
No
get
problem.
straight into it. Let's tell people who don't know you, why are you the man, the myth, and the legend? You know, place us, tell us about your upbringing, you know, your parents, your family. Let's get to know you a little bit.
So I was born and raised in California, Cali boy through and through. Never been anywhere else pretty much. My family's Syrian Circassian from Jolan.
Mm.
Uh, we lived originally in Anaheim, you know, down the street from Disneyland. So yeah, that's where I was born and raised. We're Abzak. I can give you guys a full family tree if
I'm sure.
available upon request.
I'm sure.
And yeah, we moved inland about 10, 15 years ago.
Mm.
Went to school in LA, did molecular biology, and yeah, now we're here
There you go.
doing the community events.
I didn't know you did molecular biology. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like cell function, cell physiology, you know, genetics,
Oh,
a lot of, you know.
very
But
cool.
don't ask me like anatomy question. If you ask me where my nose is, I wouldn't know where my nose
Well,
is.
don't worry.
It's all on the molecular scale.
Then in that case, we're on the same level because I also,
Yeah.
I don't even know what I would ask you. All I know is like mitochondria is the powerhouse, and that's pretty much all I can think of.
That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know, to be honest.
There you go. So I have notes here regarding what we were going to talk about. Tamid is too cool for my questions. He wanted to freeball it. He thought that would be more engaging. I said, I love that idea. The questions are conversation starters. So if you don't need the questions, let's just do it. So
Okay.
you've been to New Jersey several times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now you're spearheading the California community on this page. You're so far the only adult voice. I had my niece on here. so she beat you in that regard.
Yeah,
As somebody
after
who is fully grown and able to kind of give mixed, and you've been overseas, you've met, oh man, we have so much to talk about. You've been to the Caucasus, you've been to
Syria,
Turkey, Syria. Have you been to Turkey?
Turkey, no, not
No.
yet.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know if layovers count. I didn't leave the plane, so
No, that doesn't count.
yeah.
Unless somebody asks you where are you from and you say Cherkez and they explode with just like, oh, Cherkez.
Yeah.
It doesn't count. You haven't been to
Okay,
Turkey.
okay.
Okay, so let's talk about your, um, experiences. Like, usually people associate the Circassian community to the New Jersey community. Um,
Hmm.
let's shed some light on this California community. Let's get there.
I mean, pretty much the California community is an offshoot of the Jersey community. So when, our parents' generation came over, they all started in New Jersey and then they came out to California. So it's an offshoot. I don't, everyone has different numbers. You hear that New Jersey has Circassians in the thousands. I've
Mhm.
heard as high as 10,000. I don't know. And of course, they're counting New Jersey, New York, and all that.
Right. East Coast.
California, sorry?
East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast, East Coast. So when you do West Coast, so California, a little bit of like Nevada, Washington, there's Circassians. So let's say the whole West Coast, few hundred, like maybe 500 to 1,000 maximum.
Okay.
So it's a much smaller community,
Right.
and that's why you're not going to hear as much about us. I mean, everyone in the United States, knows California is here, but I feel like we still have to put ourselves on the map on the global Circassian
Right.
scale.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, there's about 500 of us. Compared to New Jersey, we are a lot more spread out.
Mm.
Just the state is huge. So it is a little bit tougher to get people together and, meet up. We don't have like a space like New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to kind of go with the flow, and the events are a little bit hard to organize, but it works out. We try to keep things going, keep the culture alive.
Mm-hmm. And you've been, so for anybody who doesn't know, Tamer is, I don't know if you still are, you're studying molecular biology. A man could get busy, okay? But previously in your younger years, you were involved in organizing and kind of cultural events for the Circassian community in SoCal, right?
I mean, we were born and raised in the community. Back in the day, we had a Jamia, we had a Casa. So I was in a dance group. I was going to events. I was me and my cousin Alon and another guy, our friend Chancel. We were the three young guys that, you always have to have the three young
Yeah,
soloists.
yeah.
So we were those guys. We were in the community. And then, maybe we could get into it later, but as some of you may know, the community had some troubles and it fell apart. But a lot of us youth, we didn't let that stop us. And as we got older, because the community kind of fell apart when, personally, I was around 10,
Mhm.
11 years
Very
old.
young. Okay.
But I'm kind of, actually, I was the one of the youngest, if not the youngest to the day in the dance group. So a lot of the people that were in the dance group were older. They were already in their teens. Some were going to college. So some of these guys tried to hold things together, and we started doing events. I started off helping, because I was a little bit younger. But then, high school, college time, that's when I started doing, kind of taking charge, doing some of my own events with other people. And that's where we're at now. Still doing it.
Awesome. No, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It speaks to your just like genuine sort of care and I don't know, your like connection to your culture. And that's kind of what this page is about, just like
Yeah.
what you do in a personal level to kind of keep yourself connected and community events are a big deal, especially when you don't have a building and you don't have like an established sort of organization, right?
Mhm.
So it is just like messaging people, sending out flyers, is it through Facebook? Do you like just text? Like How do you manage that?
Everything. Like I've gotten to the point where I've actually knocked on doors,
Wow.
inviting people to events. Because again, we're so far apart due to circumstances that sometimes even Facebook, if someone doesn't have a Facebook or Instagram, sometimes the phone number. I have a list. Back in 2001, the Jamia, I think it was Jersey. They made a list of all the addresses, names, and phone numbers of all the Circassians they could in New Jersey. So our contact list is from 2001. So we really need to get on like bringing everybody back. And there's a lot of new people too. A lot of new
Right.
people are coming every day.
Right.
So um, we had one of our friends, he used to be in the dance group way back in the day with me. He moved away to Jordan for a while and he just came back. And I was like, yeah, come to such and such an event. All the guys are there, everybody. But
Hmm.
then when I thought about it, like 90% were new, like people that
Oh,
came to California in the last 10 years. And I was like, actually, you don't
wow.
know anybody,
Right.
So California is also, because we're so small, changes matter a lot. So when someone comes and goes, there's a bigger impact.
Right.
So I would say especially in the last 10 years, the whole face of California has changed. Like it's a lot of new people.
Right. That's so cool. That's so
So it's
cool.
hard. You have to get everybody, people coming from overseas, they literally don't know anybody.
Hmm.
A lot of people discover us through a post here and there, Facebook or whatever, like,
Right.
and they'll say, I've lived in California for 5 years. I had no idea there were Circassians here.
Wow.
It happens a lot all the
Wow.
time.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, my personal, I guess, journey through this, as everyone knows, I'm not really the most, I'm camera shy. I'm not very outgoing. I can be if I have to when the need arises.
If they force me,
But,
if they ask nicely.
but, it's almost, I think I got here by, again, circumstance. Like,
Right.
I happen to be very into the culture,
Mm.
and it just, again, circumstance. Because of that, I just happen to be. I got to a point where I don't want to do it in the sense like I'm shy. I don't want to do it, but it got to the point where if nobody does it, I don't want to. I don't want anyone to say Tamer sat there and didn't do anything.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So I'm, if someone wants to take over, cool. I will have done my job, no problem.
right,
But
right,
the idea is to teach the younger generation so that they can take over eventually.
right.
It
No,
can't be one person,
yeah, yeah,
and it never was. It never was one person. I'm just saying, it has to. We have to rebuild. It's about time.
yeah.
Like it has to. We have to build towards an actual organized something or other.
Something, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very different situation from New Jersey. And because I grew up there and I moved to California, it was my senior year of high school. And then I spent like basically the rest of my time on the West Coast. We got to
Hmm.
know each other through different events, comings and goings, Eids. I'm a little bit older than you, but you guys were our neighbors in Rancho Cucamonga. Say
Yeah.
that. That's a mouthful. Um, and it was awesome. I did a little bit of dancing with you, and
Hmm.
I always felt like you just had, like I mentioned before, like a sincere kind of interest in culture. And anytime, like if I ever post the question, like, does anybody know about this song or this video, Tamer comes to the rescue and he's like, here you go. And I'm like, how did you do that?
I,
But
I'm an information junkie. Like it
yeah.
doesn't even. It's not just culture. Like anything, I have the strangest YouTube history. I'm the guy that sits up at 3 a.m. and watches. Like, oh, how did they make this and how did they do that? And
That's very
so
cool.
it just so happens, with a lot of Circassian, like that's our intersection, right?
Right.
So like when it comes to Circassians, that's our interface. You know, and it's kind of a tangent, but it's pretty cool how you can just being Circassian, we're automatically friends with anybody around the world, you know what I mean? So that's usually that's why I tell people that you have to have, some connection to your identity because that is your first point of contact with a stranger, another Circassian.
Right.
So if you don't kind of build that, there's not going to be that initial connection. There's not going to be that,
Right.
so that's pretty much it. I enjoy the culture. I enjoy history. I always say I feel like even if I weren't Circassian, if I were of some other ethnicity, I'd be the same, deep into it as much
Yeah.
as, I am with it. It's not just a Circassian thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, for me personally, I feel like the community, and you're going to be like, why did she say that? Why did she say that? But I feel like the community in California is especially lucky to have you. And then there are a few other people, guys and girls, that have kind of been the pillars of these community events and bringing people together and gathering people.
Mhm.
It's not an easy task. It's not easy, especially if you're a little bit more introverted. You're just kind of like, somebody else do it, but
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the Call of Duty. I'm doing it, but jokes aside, I always tell everybody, like, yeah, I'm joking. I'm saying I don't like to be the face. I don't like to be but so what we need everyone to find a niche. So right now, you know, it's like the same guy is organizing the event and choreographing the dances and playing the pshina and doing the joke, and it's impossible.
right,
So everyone needs to find their niche.
right,
Like, my niche is maybe the information, the knowledge, the whatever. Maybe we need an MC. We need a community organizer. We need, a PR person. We need accountants. So everyone needs to find that niche.
right,
So that's what it is. Like, I do it now because we have to, but the goal is to spread the work, because it'll never, like, we're doing okay, we're doing good. I'm not trying to bash what we have going
of
on,
course,
but it's time to move forward. It's time to move forward. So
right, right.
hopefully, we can inspire people to step up.
So any California Circassians that are listening, West Coast Circassians, you
Yeah.
heard it. That's the call.
We're hiring. We're hiring.
We're hiring. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. And then you have family in New Jersey. You go and you come all the time.
hmm
How do you feel about crossing into New Jersey state lines? How does that feel for you, like, as somebody who is working, on a community level in California, and you just described sort of what that's like to go there and just kind of experience it as someone who didn't probably have anything to do with organizing, just as a guest.
Yeah. I mean, again, in a weird way, the more Circassian you are, the more everyone knows each other, right? So when I went, I was welcome. They knew of me, like you said, I have cousins there, so I was welcomed right away. They invited me to events. I've been invited recently, like, they were gonna have a pshina night. They invited me to the pshina night. It didn't work out. I remember there was the CYC, their youth organization. I just happened to be in town, and they invited me to sit in on the meeting. So I've been welcomed by the New Jersey community, and like you said, I've been there like over 10 times.
Right.
Um, so, but it's a different beast too. Like, yeah, they have way more people. Like, it might seem like we were complaining earlier, saying that California is really small, but sometimes it has its advantages. You can have your personal space, and so it's a different beast. Every time I go, I meet a whole new set of people. It's like, yeah. So they have the issues, the pros and cons are different.
Right.
Even though, and you also have to consider California as a state. Forget the Caucasian stuff. California as a state is very different from New Jersey. They're more, the reason why they're so dense, and like the state itself has a dense population. They're more small town. They're more, closely knit as a whole society, as a whole state. New York, New Jersey. So yeah, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we go all the time, and what we're trying to do is we want to start having more events together, like this last soccer game and other things. We want to invite the Arts Dance Ensemble, and we want to
That's
start
super
to
cool.
connect again.
That would be so awesome. I would get on a plane to go to that. If there was anything like that, let's do it.
Let's do it. I want to do it. I'm waiting. I'll do it.
Sounds so good. So they could come in the winter, they could escape a
Mhm.
little bit of the winter, they could come to California, enjoy whatever's going on there, the beautiful low 70-degree weather, and everybody benefits, I think. That would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
I had a plan once. You know how Jersey does a Diga Day in the summer? We should have like a winter Diga Day so that we could attend each other's, kind of space it out.
Sounds,
So
see?
we definitely need to start planning around these things where, we do intercommunity work and
Right,
especially the youth.
right, right. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I mean, everybody's off. People can plan ahead of time. Oh, Tamer, I love it. I love it.
There's a lot of work to do, but
Man, I love it though. That's literally when you're saying we need to move forward, that's exactly it. It's so cool. Um, I have a note here about you saying, the unique challenge of now we're going to talk about the United States in
mhm,
in accordance to the world, right? So in the United States, we have the challenge of like all these Circassian people who come in from different parts of the globe into one kind of community, trying to get along with each other.
yeah,
So now we are moving from Cali to and New Jersey, and we're talking
mhm,
about people coming in just to America in general. And I think when you mentioned that, you were talking about like between the Caucasus and the Middle East and probably Europe. People have had a stint in Europe and Turkey, and I mean that's in and of itself a challenge, right?
yeah. I mean, the United States in general, right? It's the melting pot, so it brings a lot of people together that, you know, have never like they shouldn't have ever been together, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
this person from this corner of the world and that corner of the world for thousands and thousands of years never interacted, and now they're here.
They're having lunch at
So
the
that
table.
we're not at the thousands and thousands of years apart, but we are a good 150 years apart. So naturally, Circassians from the Middle East, forget it. Even like the difference between Syria and Jordan, and Kfar Kama and this and that, Rihaniya, they're still pretty close, but there's big differences. So sometimes it can be a unique challenge because we have developed like cultural differences
Mm,
due to where we live, language barriers. So it seems foreign, like in when you go to, I don't know, Kafkas, for example, and tell them like, this situation happened and that situation happened. It seems foreign to them because they're more tight knit. They all speak the same language, whether it's Circassian or Russian, or they were all born and raised in the same village. It's a little different, but here you have people coming from everywhere,
right,
speaking different languages. A
right.
lot of sometimes there's clashes, just cultural differences. Sometimes even if there's not a clash, there's a little bit an aversion,
Oh,
like not aversion, but I guess fear of the unknown,
yeah,
or like uh shyness, or it depends, but it happens. Like from what I understood, there are a lot of people from Kafkas in New York, and
uh-huh.
they don't necessarily come to New Jersey. Why, I don't know. Of course, I can't speak for them, but there is that, like, everyone's hanging out in their own clique, which we
Pocket.
need to, yeah, which we need to make sure doesn't happen, because especially in California, we're so few already. We can't afford to have cliques. We
Right,
have to all be under one.
right,
Um, and this extends too to other people from the Caucasus, whether it's like, Abaza, Qarashai, Dagestan,
right.
we can't. In New Jersey, they have a Qarashai Jamia because they have a big enough population.
Mm,
But in California, we can't afford to not welcome these people in. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So the unique situation of the U.S. is balancing all of that, making sure everyone feels welcome, making sure that everyone, realizes this is a Circassian thing, and like you have to, like I said earlier, create that initial like brotherhood, sisterhood, where like I'm Circassian, you're Circassian, we know nothing about each other, but let's try to at least automatically become friends and
right,
work this out.
right, right.
So most of the time it's fine. It's just you have to get past that initial, you know, someone has to, whether it's this person or that person, someone has to cross over and reach out.
Yeah.
So I try to do that, and I recommend anyone, like a lot of people contact me, you know, they're like, hey, someone gave me your number, we heard you're the guy, whatever, can you introduce me to the community?
Right.
And sometimes they contact other people just by coincidence. So I urge those people, if someone contacts you from outside, for you to be that, you know, representative, that liaison, to bring them in. Because, like I said, there's people coming in, you know, all the time, and they're looking for something. That's all they know is Circassian.
Right.
You know, if you were to be thrown in, I mean, you went to Turkey, you know, if someone is thrown into that new environment, you want to find a Circassian to help you out, you know.
Yeah.
So
I went to and I talked on this topic a little bit with Murad Perez, about just maybe expanding our definition of our centers, you know, because in Turkey, even though there are so many Cherkess, you know, Circassians, Caucasians, Karashay, everybody's kind of Chechen, everyone's kind of mixed in there together, but the definition of that brotherhood encompasses everybody. And you were talking about, like, in California, you know, there's not enough people to just let people kind of float away without knowing, oh, there are a lot of rules, you can't kind of enter or whatever. And California, I think because of the state culture in general, it's a little bit more mellow in some ways.
Yeah, you can get away with more. Yeah. And let's be honest, that extends to Circassians that marry outside the culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to welcome that spouse, whether they're Circassian or not, because the kids are, you know, it's not the same as wherever back home outside of the United States, whether we're talking, you know, in the last couple of generations or, you know, way back, you know, before the war. The situation's not the same.
Right.
You have to adapt the rules, like you said. You know, they're not really rules. I mean, who made these rules? But you have to adapt. So if you're gonna sit there and say, I'm, you know, from Syria, I'm from Turkey, I'm from this, I'm from that, like, you're not being Circassian. You know what I mean? Like, not that there's something wrong with being Turkish or Syrian, whatever, but you can't limit. So what you're saying is we have to expand the definition. People are always trying to limit it, like to narrow it even more than it is, you know.
Right.
So that's what we have to avoid, because it happens, you know. We don't have to get into stories, but I know people that are like, I don't feel welcome, I don't care, I don't want to come anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
And they'll be like either fully Circassian or they'll be half or whatever. And in my eyes, that's a detriment to our preservation in general. You know, I look at other cultures, indigenous cultures, and I talk about this all the time. You know, you take your cues from the people who have a similar situation as you, and it's incredibly difficult to preserve a culture that is, you know, like an incredible minority, if that minority within itself is extremely narrow and limiting. So that's how I kind of view that.
I mean, like, even in a positive sense, you know, we have picked up things from our neighboring cultures that have given our Circassian culture some extra flavor.
Right.
Like, let's take music, for example. Music in Caucasus and music in Syria, Jordan, they're different.
Right.
Lately, I've been seeing, especially in Caucasus, they've been taking, like, kind of Abida stuff and bringing it in, because they've never heard it. You know, how would someone in Caucasus that never left know what happened in the diaspora? You know, with the internet and stuff, we're getting reconnected, but there's like a good 100 years of development in the local, you know, spheres that no one's aware of. You know.
I didn't know that. You know that because we still have to get to that topic, but you definitely you're a musician too on the side when you're molecular biologying on the other side.
But yeah, like, we have to there's a lot to share. Like picking up from each other is like, artistic developments or cultural developments. Like there's a lot to share. There's a lot to learn. Like if I'm not mistaken, for example, like Tamer, they didn't really dance in Kafkas, but then once, in the 80s, 90s, when the borders opened up and everything, and they went to Turkey and they're like, oh, what's this? They're dancing because it's kind of more iconic in Turkey. And they're like, oh, what's this? And they learned it. And, my Pshina teacher, Zalim, he tells us the story. We would go out and try. He was like one of the first batches to go out with Nelmas. He was the musician of Nelmas. So he would go out and learn the tunes of the people in Turkey, Syria, Jordan, whatever, and bring them back and kind of like not document them, but like introduce them to. And so there's like this weird internal cultural exchange.
Wow.
That people, if you're gonna be again aversive and shy, and you're never gonna get a taste of.
Wow. I had somebody ask me the most interesting question one time in DM, and they asked if American Circassians have any like specific, cultural kind of quirks or like dancing styles that have developed, here. Just like, how you mentioned Abida, and like, Jolan is very Jolan, and I would say I could recognize Jordan dance groups and stuff. So do you have any insight into that?
I'm trying to develop them, actually. In my plan for California domination, I always have it in mind, like we need to do something iconic, something. I don't know if you're aware, I'm friends with the singer Estamir Panasa. And I told him, man, let's make a song called Kali Qafa. It sounds cool, Kali Qafa.
Yeah.
And we'll do a music video, a song, maybe throw in a dance move that we invent, whatever. Let's brand ourselves, So far, I don't think we have anything yet, but I'm thinking
on it.
I'm working. So cool. I'm always thinking about it.
That's so cool.
The only thing I can say is in Jersey, they do the V's and Qafa like this, and we do them like that. So that's our that's our
There
difference.
You go.
Yeah.
I love that. So you mentioned your Pshina teacher, who is from Nalmes. You have that's a very cool kind of way to learn Pshina. You're not taking classes down the street. That's an incredible place to learn.
Well, we are taking classes down the street. That's the crazy part, because who would have thought the head Pshinawa of Nalmes is gonna be down the street? That he's probably not gonna appreciate me saying it, but no, as a joke. But pretty much, he always says that he came to California in hiding. He was like running away from everything, and
right.
He's one of those guys that lived here for several years without saying anything, and he did it a little bit on purpose. But he was like, I'm taking a break. He used to be on the East Coast, and he's like taking a break. But then what had happened was Aslan Shibzu and Estamir, who I mentioned, they were coming to Jersey for CEF, the Circassian Education Foundation. They do these parties. And one of their friends, Askat, over there, he was looking for somebody. He had the idea of coming to California. He heard there's Circassians there. He wants to do an event. He wanted to piggyback off the fact that they were in Jersey. So, it came to me, and I, talked to Yusuf, my friend, and everybody, and we did this event with them. So at the time when they arrived and we're meeting everybody, they're like, we're going to go pick up our friend Zalim. And I'm like, okay, Zalim, whatever. And they're like, yeah, he's the Nalmas Pshinawa. Like Zalim? Because I've heard of him, right? I'm like, Zalim, that Zalim? And he's like, yeah, he's been living in California for 3, 4, 5 years.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, why didn't he say anything? And then we find him, and we, me and Yusuf go up to him. We're like, hey, can you please teach us some Shina, whatever? And he's like, jokingly, like, I'm kind of retired. And we're like, please, whatever, back and forth. And then, but to this day, he jokes, and he says, like, man, I was relaxed. Nobody knew who I was, and you guys dragged me out. We're going. It's like a inside
so
joke we have. But yeah, like I remember as a kid, back when we did have a dance group in the Jamia, one day we were just watching videos, and someone had an old cassette of like, not, well, it wasn't old at the time. This was 20 years ago, so it
Yeah,
was new at the time.
yeah,
But he had a cassette of Nelmas, and so we were watching Zalim. But like, who would have thought, in the 90s or early 2000s, 10-year-old me is like watching Zalim playing Pinna. Who would have thought another 10, 15 years later he'd be in California teaching me?
right.
So it was a, very surreal
That's very cool.
situation. Yeah.
That's very cool. And I've heard you play. Sometimes you post it. You post your playings on your Instagram, and the quality is there, Tamer. It's there.
Again, I credit it to him. Like I've played for a long time just by ear.
Mm,
I don't know music, by the way. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pushing buttons and hearing what comes out.
wow.
So that's how I was for a while, but you hit a wall. Like you can only go so far without,
Right.
And then with Zalim, it was like I erased my previous repertoire and just,
Mm.
started fresh with him, and it's on another level with him,
And one day you'll teach my boys to play.
Inshallah, why not?
Yeah, I would love
We
that.
need more musicians. We need
I
more.
know.
Like I said, I'm trying to find roles for everybody. We need a bit of banawa. We need a hatiyak. We need someone to be in charge of the jugs and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. My cousin just joined, and I don't know how long she's going to be on here to listen. Clara Kedekwe, she just joined.
Our new Kelly.
She's new,
Mhm.
and so she just moved, and these people that like her, there are for me that I know a couple people that are like that were like deep in the community, been there their whole life, and they've moved to California, and now they're adjusting to
Yeah.
how all that space that you were talking about is just a lot of space between community members, events. There's no association, for example,
Mhm.
things like that. So, for anybody who wants to move to California, is thinking about moving to California, it's a much more proactive situation, right? You have to
We have to give more
more. It's not
on
just,
that.
yeah, you can't just show up anymore. And what's beautiful is that in New Jersey, a lot of the people that care about the community, they remember growing up giving. They were in a
Mhm.
dance group, they set the tables up and all these things. But as far as like administrative or coordinating, it's a little bit more maybe obscure. I mean, for me, it's obscure. I mean, who knows, for other people. But I do like that everybody's more visible in California. You
Mhm.
can see who's putting in all the effort, right? So
I
that's,
mean, I'll tell you right away, they've only been here for a few months, and this was our first event, and they already volunteered. They were like,
oh,
"What can we
see,
do?" And I at first I was shy. I'm like, I don't want to make. They're still new. They're still guests. I don't want to make them do work. And we're like, no, we want to help, and
they
they
love it.
helped out at the event, so I appreciate it. So
Yeah, they're very. I mean, I know my cousin and her husband and the girls are very proactive community members. So maybe you'll be seeing a lot of them. Sorry,
hopefully,
I totally put you on the spot, but you're one of those
volunteered
people who
her.
just moved out there. Um, and then something that kind of cracked me up. Moving on to the next topic. It kind of cracked me up when you mentioned it about this quote unquote super Circassian persona.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's like a little bit of a
Now we're
stereotype.
getting a little personal. Uh, it's like something that has grown over the years, and I have to address.
Let's hear it.
Again, going back, I call it circumstance. I enjoy culture, I enjoy learning, I enjoy all this stuff. My parents thankfully taught me Circassian, and that's a big key. Like, once you learn the language, that's like your Circassian level goes up. Just because, it's just, not to show off. It is what it is.
Of course,
Without that key,
of
it
course.
opens everything.
Right.
So I just happen to have all these things handed to me, like my parents were into the culture, and they taught me everything, and the language and my personal interest. So I became known as like the Circassian guy. You know what I mean? But it got to a point where it's like that's all he is the Circassian guy. And I'm like, relax, guys. Like I have a personality outside of the Circassian world. Like it got to the point like if I'm walking, somewhere like and a Circassian sees me like, where's the flag? Where's the joke? Where's
Wow.
the it got to that point,
Wow.
And so I'll admit lately I've been trying to not tone down my Circassian, I am who I am, but I've been trying to again bring people up so that they realize like it's nothing special really in the sense that I'm not like again relative to other communities. Unfortunately, California might be like on the lower end of how expressive they are with their culture.
Right.
Again, just due to circumstance.
Right.
So like if we say on a scale of 1 to 10, if California is, let's say 3 or whatever, I'm just a 4. I'm not like a 10, 11, 12 past the scale. I'm just a 4. It's relative is what I've been trying to tell people. And I'm glad like to help whenever, if someone asks me something like you said, like I'm glad to help. But I'd also like people to come to the super Circassian side and learn from themselves because
Right.
it's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. And for some people, unfortunately, I mean, if we have to get into this topic, the California Jamia, we had a Jamia, we had a Casa before about 20 years ago. And we don't have to go into what happened because who cares what happened?
Right.
All we know is what happened. So the community fell apart. And I'm fortunate to say, but our parents, when I say our parents, I mean our parents' generation, they messed up. For maybe one side was right, one side was wrong. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is we ended up with a broken community.
Right.
And again, not to go into the details now, the problem is, I guess, the difference between us in New Jersey and other communities is our generation has to build from the bottom up. Like, it's not like in New Jersey, people our age are just maintaining or progressing within a infrastructure that's already kind of there for them.
Right.
Us, we have to be our parents, 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have to start over fresh. So how did I get here from Super Circassian?
I think, the way that I see this progressing is that, you were saying circumstances. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like you take this responsibility seriously. Like it seems to me there's an imminent threat, which is that
Yes,
it's
there
no
we
longer
go.
a community, which is you remember a community. You remember there being a dance group and, so.
Yeah. So the point is that due to that circumstance, any level of Circassianness suddenly becomes like relatively a big deal. So what had happened, if I try to psychoanalyze what had happened, back then is, again, we were 10, 11, 12 years old. We were kids,
Right.
If you were to even tell me what had happened, I don't even know. I wasn't there. It was behind closed doors. You hear rumors and this and that.
Yeah.
But what had happened was, first we split into 2, and then the 2 became 4, and they split. And unfortunately, the Circassians got divided into, let's say, 4 camps.
Okay.
You had the people that went right, people went left. Some people went to both. Some people were like, forget all this. I'm not Circassian anymore. I'm out. Right. So you had these 4 camps. It's not like we have 500 Circassians and went 250, 250. No, it was like 50, 50, 50, 50.
Right.
And so imagine, that was like 20 years ago, a whole generation passed. There are kids that are in college now that weren't born when the first Jamia, was there.
Right.
So due to that unfortunate circumstance, they are, they don't know a lot. Like there's some people that you can go up to them and say, they don't know water, like very simple things. And I'm not trying to put them down, but it shows you they're too disconnected. So what had happened too was that Imagine you're a 10, 11, 12-year-old, right? You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You just hear the Jam'i is done and this and that. And all you hear is this side is saying, those guys are this and that, right? They're bad. And then you go over there, and what do they say? These guys are this and that, and they're bad.
Right.
So what is the kid here? Circassians over there bad, Circassians over there bad, Circassians are bad.
Right.
So it became like, you know, you talk about generational trauma and all that. I don't know if we can call it trauma, but there's definitely baggage,
Right.
which got carried over to the kids. So I would say from like 2005-ish to almost 2015, it wasn't cool to be Circassian. Like, you know, it's like, oh, that thing, those guys, the ones that cause all this, you know. Me, I was crazy and I stayed Circassian the whole time, right? So then that's where that whole thing comes up, you know, like he's a Circassian guy, he's the this, he's the
Right.
it almost, I don't want to say, you know, negative, but it did have that, like it became a stereotype, you know what I mean? And it's not just me, there's plenty of us
Yeah.
where it's like, he's the Circassian guy.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what shifted. I like to say it's like society as a whole, you know, identity and all these, you know, topics.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, everyone's Circassian. Like, and then now I have social currency. Like, oh, man, the Circassian guy, yo, bro, you know, this and that. It's like,
Oh my God,
so it's a little bit of there's a whiplash, you know, of the stereotype. It went from, you know, kind of like a nerdy geeky thing to like the coolest thing ever. Like, whoa, you're ethnic, you're cultural.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which again, I know I'm coming off a little bitter about it, but it is what it is.
No.
I got what I wanted, whatever way it happened.
Right.
You know.
No, I'll tell you, you don't sound bitter. I mean, I could see that. I'm old enough, like I didn't grow up in the California casa, like at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We moved to California in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent that whole first year in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Rancho, and it was like college, and I had already kind of, you know, I was late, very late.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean about things going like nerdy, and then they kind of come back, and there are things in my own life that I can kind of relate to that, even though I didn't. I mean, I think even in New Jersey, to some degree, there are people that experience that. Just like people were very passionate about being Circassian and the culture and cultural preservation, I think that they could all, to some degree, say that they experienced some kind of like a little bit of a backlash, a little bit of a
stigma, I would call it. Like,
yeah. And
yeah.
I'm personally happy to see things kind of swinging the other way. And I think you're absolutely right. It's about society in general. Minorities are speaking up. Everybody wants to take a spot, you know, like they say, at the table. You know, I created this page because of that. I felt like this word Caucasian, it pisses me off. It's everywhere and it doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean. So I'm just trying to take up space as a Caucasian person to reclaim my identity, especially after going to Turkey, and just it meant something completely different. And it just kind of like really impacted me in that way. So to you, because I'm talking to you, obviously, you know, I commend you in being able to just stay true to yourself, even when it wasn't cool, you know. And that's the thing with trends. You know, if I could say anything about trends, just who cares? You know, trends, they come and they go. But
I don't think it was out of arrogance, like the stigma or whatever. It was out of, you know, again, ignorance might be a strong word, but that's pretty much what it was. They didn't know what Circassian was. Like I said, when you get cut off, and you see the super Circassian, it's, you know.
Yeah.
But now I think also you have to understand that people are older. Again, when I'm saying people, I'm talking about my generation, you know, like 20s, 30s, 40s. So as time has progressed, they're like, oh, okay, it wasn't. They're starting to realize, you know, it's weird. I've had weird conversations with people where they're like, all you have is Circassian music. All you have is this and that. People people think that it's normal. So Circassian music for me is normal.
Hmm.
It would be out of my way to listen to, I don't know, music from Turkey or music from, it has nothing to do with me. Like I'm not from Turkey. I'm not.
Hmm.
So it's that's the normal. But for other people, unfortunately, their circumstances, when they listen to Circassian music, they're going out of their way.
Right.
So it has a different perspective. That's what's going on is.
Right.
But then it takes a while for them to assimilate like Circassian music is me. So it's not, I'm not going at, and when I say me, I don't mean me. I mean,
Right.
the
As a
person has to
singular
realize
identity. Right.
that's me. I'm not, that's not an effort. It's not a facade. It's just, you are, you don't blame, for example, like we're in California, there's a lot of, uh, I don't know, like let's say, I have Arabic neighbors. When they put Arabic music,
Mm.
it's like it's no speaking Arabic. I became it's
Yeah.
عادي, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's like why are you gonna why would you point it out? They're Palestinian. They're gonna put an Adami Palestinian. Why not? Like they're not going out of their way. You don't call them super Palestinians. Although they are super Palestinians, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that's what it took. I think it took a while for people to realize that whether it's me or other super Circs or whatever you want to call them, we weren't doing anything that special. We weren't going out of our way. It's just we just stayed in touch. That's it.
Yeah.
And now people are catching up, thankfully. So
Right.
that's what happened. That's what happened.
Yeah.
I joke about it and this and that. I'm like, oh, now you guys, showed up. Where you been?
Let
But I understand.
let me get you the playlist. What you've missed in
Yeah,
the last
yeah,
20 years.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that that's incredibly insightful. I love how you talked about that. And sometimes when you were talking about it, I think it also stems from a little bit of an insecurity in identity, and it stems from making that connection that, like you were saying, if a Palestinian person is just going to listen to Palestinian music, it's not a big deal. So why is it a big deal for me to listen to
Mhm.
Circassian music? And apply that to all cultures:
Yeah,
Afghan, Mexican, Italian, European. I mean, it's cool to just be like, listen to this jam, listen to this like cool Circassian song. Because there are now, like with the TikTok and Reels and Instagram and all of that, people are sharing so many cool kind of media creations
hmm
that are just very Circassian, very Caucasian, and it's amazing. I've learned so much about our region in just the last few, maybe 6 or 7 months since I started this page, and I'm like really trying to bring in like resources. It's incredible. The variety is there, the mood, the vibe, all of it. It's like all there, and it's modern. It's not just how you imagine and your parents were dancing to a certain type of music, which
yeah.
of course has its place. But let's say young people want something more modern. It exists now. You just have to kind of keep up with it.
Not just that. I mean, the threat of
Mm.
assimilation is with social media, like all of your guests have said, is
Right.
it's still there, but you have a great tool to combat it.
Right.
So again, going back to what I was saying, where people um, another thing about the Circassian, super Circassian,
Mm.
they unfortunately another aversion was we have to talk about the Circassians that take it too far,
Okay.
where they're like Circassians are,
Only.
yeah, they take it too far. And I've had situations where because of those characters, people are averse to the whole culture
Right.
because of that person taking it too far.
Right.
I've had situations where, people invite me to their weddings to play music or dance or whatever. I've had someone, it was sad. It was a sad text. They were like, hey, I'm getting married, I like to play pshina, but just FYI, my spouse is not Circassian, so I understand if you don't want to come.
I,
It's like, I mean, it's sad that is even a thing. It's sad that I don't hold it against a person, but it's sad that they thought I might feel that way because I am super Circassian. You get there's these things like people make assumptions like Circassians are this, Circassians are that.
yeah,
So that's another thing we have to start to take away from being Circassian doesn't mean, you know, not to make excuses for that mentality, but again, at the time, it's taking the fear of assimilation too far. They're like, we have to isolate, we have to make sure nothing changes and make sure this and that. And it went too far, you know? And so we do have to somehow separate that from being Circassian.
right.
Yeah, I mean, you remember my meme page, the conservative Circ. So everyone who doesn't know, I made a meme page a long time ago, and it was a picture of Circassian with the beard and the face, and
Yeah,
yeah, I think if I put on the gear, I would look like that.
probably.
But the whole joke, what was it called? The conservative Circ. Like the joke was you're taking it too far.
Right.
And it was just a guy with that mean, stern look and saying this and that. This is Kabza, this is that, this is that. So we have to separate being Circassian from that. Again, the threat is not as severe. So like let it go,
Yeah.
open up a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking about that. That's actually a topic that I haven't like openly addressed it on this page yet, but it's definitely something that is like a very big part of my own personal kind of approach to culture. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and it sounds like you've been associated with that. You have experience being associated with that, so you can definitely speak on that behalf. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I just want to say it's not that bad where people it's a thing that slips, like
Right,
I said, when I phrased what that person said, that's exactly how they said it.
right,
Hey, I understand you might like no one's saying like straight up you're like this and I
right,
expect this. It's just like it's that weird like awkwardness, like they don't know what to expect. Is he gonna be like, no, I'm never gonna go, I'm never gonna do this for you, and ever
right,
they don't know what to expect because of that. I don't think that's just a super Circassian thing. I think that's from Circassian to Circassian.
right,
If one Circassian's more open, they don't know what to expect from the other Circassian,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
So that's a big problem that we have to talk about.
right. So in saying that, I'd like to just frame it in a way that our people, like any other
Mhm.
group of people, we are not a monolith. You can't say that we're all the same, and you can't say that we all carry the same values or ideas about identity and our culture and things like that. So again, going against this idea of a very narrow definition of what it means to be connected to culture, I'm trying to challenge that idea by expanding it and including people, bringing people in that were shy, that felt like I did something wrong, I married out and I broke a rule, and now the community is going to excommunicate me and I'm never going to be allowed in. And I feel like a lot of times people impose that on themselves without even trying, because they don't even want to hear it. I've seen that
Yeah,
happen with a lot of young people. They live a very liberal type of lifestyle, and they just, without ever having a confrontation, they just let go, you know,
yeah.
because they feel like, well, that's what's going to happen to me anyways. So let me just cut to the chase, sort of.
Let's be honest, it will happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen, somewhere, somehow, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, People again have this idea that the Caucasians lived, in this secluded mountain area and they didn't have contact with the outside world and nobody.
Right.
I mentioned it to you, but I've been watching these documentaries from Adigea specifically, where they're going from village to village and talking about, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the history of the village and the names, people's last names and this, and they'll tell you like this name is not Circassian. This person's Greek. 1,000 years ago, his Greek whatever came over. So like people have this idea that Circassians, no culture on earth, unless you're like we're on an island somewhere and isolated, and those do exist,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. But there's no these lines, you know, they don't really exist. Now you could, let's be honest too, you could take it too far. I mean, like if every Circassian married outside the culture, not that there's anything wrong with it on the individual level, but
Right.
if everyone went away, and not only that, the qualifying thing is you go away and you don't pass on anything. Let's say if you have kids or anything,
Right.
that's when, like practically speaking, it will die out, and that can happen between Circassians too. Two Circassians can
Right.
get married if they don't pass anything on,
Right.
it's gonna die out.
Right.
So we do have to figure out that balance. You know what I mean? And I think again, maybe what I'm saying doesn't we can't blanket apply it to every community, Circassian community.
Right.
We can't apply a blanket. But I'm just gonna speak for California. Like I was saying earlier, we can't afford to say this person's that, let alone marrying outside the culture. Like, okay, they married Qarashai, they married this. It's like you don't even know that you don't know the difference between Sadiq and Qarashai anyway. You know, let's be honest. Why are you tripping? You know, why are you? Uh, it happens. But what I'm saying is that, you know, you're gonna lose every person in California. You lose is a big deal. Every single person. We can't afford. So when when someone marries outside and you don't welcome them, they're gonna leave and take their whole family with them. You
Right.
know, and that could extend not just to that, like nuclear family, their parents, their friends. They're gonna say why the casa the this they you know kicked out such and such, my friend, my sister, my brother, my whatever. I'm gonna go. I'm not coming either. Like we can't afford any of that.
Yeah.
We can't afford any of that.
I
And
agree.
and so the older people that say like, oh, did you hear so and so married this or that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, I don't say it to their faces, you know, because older people, but what I say
Right.
to myself is, let's say you have that mentality of you have to marry Circassian, whatever. What these older people have to realize, in California, I'm speaking in California,
Right.
if you're pissed off that so and so married outside, it's your fault because you broke up the Jamaican. So that's the result. If you think that's a horrible thing,
Right.
you're the consequence of that. I mean, you're the cause of that
Wow.
thing. You know, that's what
True.
people have to do.
It's true. You got to hold yourself
I,
accountable. Wow.
so if you wanted them to stay, you should have kept them together.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's something that I think I talked to one of my early guests about this, is making the culture attractive to youth.
Hmm.
So as a young person, you saw adults arguing, I'm sure you have precious memories and experiences with culture, especially because it was so nurtured in your home. But if a person who is kind of on the fence is kind of like, it's not as strong, let's say, in the home, and they're just kind of trying to make it happen themselves, and you have enough negative experiences with adults or in the dance group or whatever, right, in a cultural setting, that would turn you off for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. So for me, like something that I focus on with my kids, especially, is making sure that, especially while they're young, that they have positive experiences regarding anything that's important to me, whether it's religion, whether it's culture, whether it's science and math. Like, you have to nurture that thing. You can't
Hmm.
you can't with a stick beat culture into people. If a person genuinely wants to marry from within their culture, they'll find a way to do it
Yeah.
most of the time, right? And if they genuinely like, you know, don't really care, you can't ostracize them. In my humble opinion, you can't ostracize somebody for that. They are still Circassian. I'm sorry. Like Jeanette, if they took a DNA
Yeah,
test, they're still Circassian. So, you know, you can't.
forget DNA. I know people that 0% Circassian, but they were raised in a Circassian,
Right. No,
circumstance, and they're more Circassian than your average
you're
Circassian. So
absolutely right.
that's what I'm saying is like, yeah, blood and culture. Like it's not 100% blood, 100% culture. There's some middle ground that defines, if you're a Circassian again.
Right.
But yeah, but, I mean, it even goes, like I said, with the older people, it's in their deep down, it's a good intention, right?
Right.
They don't want to see it go away, but they take it so far that they shoot themselves in the foot, and then it becomes like this. It's like a negative feedback loop.
Right.
I don't want the culture to die, so I'm going to be super Circassian and insist you have to marry Circassian. The person doesn't marry Circassian. That person's not Circassian anymore. And then that person's like, yeah, screw Circassians. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a downward spiral.
Right.
It's a downward spiral.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it feels like a parenting approach. You know, it's like, I know you're not the parent to all the youth in this community, but the same compassion and acceptance that I should have with my own kids regarding their life choices, which I take very seriously, you know, as far as like, you know, my children are not me. And
Mhm.
I can't view my honor and my whatever through my kids and their life choices. I have to be there for them to guide them and get them through. So like, you know, if I'm on the fence about being a community member, no matter what my percentage, right, is this
Mhm.
percentage thing, um, either I'm going to welcome somebody in and I'm going to say you're accepted and you're valid, basically, or I'm going to say you're not. And I can never imagine myself saying that to my own children. So how could I say that to another human being? That's kind of how I
I
approach.
mean, you were saying that you're not, one parent is not everybody's parent. But in some way it is. What's that phrase? Like, it takes a village to raise, like,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's the cool thing about it is that, your parents are my aunt and uncle and vice versa. Like, so even if your parents are one way, it does still hurt when like your friends' parents and the ones around you, like these are your aunts and uncles, like it still affects.
Right.
I mean, and again, it's like I have this. I don't say it out loud to their faces again, but I do have this like thing where when I talk about the older people, I'm like, you guys messed up. Like you guys like, and they know it. They know it. A lot of them, they approach me like, thank you for what you do and this and that. I've had people say we messed up.
Wow.
Like it's like they're gonna cry or something,
Right.
like it hits them.
Right.
I mean, the other day at the soccer match, unfortunately, it was a big loss, on the California side.
Right.
And I saw these older gentlemen. Coincidentally, they weren't necessarily the ones that caused the problem, but that generation, they were sitting there watching. They're like, man, our guys, they don't know how to play. What's this,
Yeah.
And what they were saying? It's like they don't know each other. They don't play. They don't hang out and play. They don't practice together. Why don't? And I'm like, no, Amo, they don't, because we don't know it. Like half the guys on the field have never met before today. You
Wow.
know what I mean? They're sitting there unconsciously, realizing like these guys don't know each other. They're not friends. They're not teammates.
Right.
And relatively, Jersey, they all know each other, born and raised together. So if you asked me who was on the team and list them out, I can't even list who was on the team.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just that's how it is. So that's the unintended consequence that they didn't realize was gonna happen.
Right.
So even I'm gonna say, I'm involved in all the community stuff. we butt heads. We fight all the time. We scream at each other, like, you know. But we always stop before it gets to the point where I don't want to talk to you anymore or something. Like in that space, in the meeting, it's a free for all. You know what I mean?
Right,
But
right,
we don't take it outside. We never say this person's out.
right,
You know, maybe there might be circumstances, who knows, where you might have to.
right.
But I'm saying in general, you don't pull the trigger. We try not, we are conscious of what happened. And I try to remind everybody before they say, you know what, this person, we don't want him anymore.
Right,
And I'm like, it's not your call. Who are you? You know, first
right,
of all, we don't have an organization to officially kick someone out. You know what I
right,
mean? And
right,
second of all, again, we can't afford to lose anybody. And thirdly, you're just going back to what our parents did. Like history repeats itself.
right.
You know, I always tell them, I try to remind people like, hey, this language, this was what they were saying 20 years ago.
It's dangerous, right?
Mhm. It's
To
dangerous.
the fiber of community building and
Yeah,
preservation and yeah.
yeah. And sometimes I want to leave. I want to kick
Yeah.
myself out, you
Yeah.
know? But I'm like, you know what? No. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, we have to, I think we have the same Circassian blood, the same fire, right?
Mhm.
But I think so far so good. Like we are aware of what the mistakes, you know,
Right.
and we try to, you know, even if someone goes a little bit too far, we bring him back.
Right. That's
So
good.
that's what we have to watch out for.
Good. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And you're still young. Your
Yeah,
your people, your homies that you're, working with are still young and as inshallah, you guys grow older and you just recruit and recruit and recruit. Like I said, the community is very lucky to have such an even-minded fellow among them. And I know the people
it's the
that you,
quiet ones you have to watch out for.
that's right.
You have to watch out.
Always,
Um,
always working those
I,
wheels.
I will say, you know, what's good is, you know, I'm almost 30, right? So anyone, let's say like 25-ish and below,
Mm,
they are still fresh. They weren't, see, I was in that transition, right?
mm,
So like I saw what was before and what came after. So I know earlier I was saying these kids, they don't know too much about the culture, but they
mm-hmm.
also don't have the same baggage that maybe our generation kind of has.
Right.
They weren't there, so it's like fresh. If you can like, you know, teach them, you know, and guide them the right, they don't have the same baggage and issues that we have. So, and all these people coming from outside of California, they
Right.
don't they don't have that, you know.
They have other
So
baggage.
yeah, so like I'm not sitting here and saying that, you know, in order to be involved in the community, you have to have been born and raised here. No, like you could have come last year for all I care. You know, if you could do good, you could do good. So that's, if anything, I recommend the people to hand it over to these fresh faces. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Because they can do more with it.
I had an interesting conversation with a woman, and she's from Syria and she's lived on the West Coast for,
Mhm.
maybe a decade. And she was saying that the hardest part for her in Syria, and I forget exactly where she's from, but she said the hardest part for her was as a youth at that time to have your voice heard and to implement new ideas.
Mhm.
And I can see that happening where there is a more structured kind of traditional organization. But the way that you guys are loosely managing things and keeping things together, you could really set up California in a very California way, sort of,
Mhm.
to have an edge in that way where the youth are making the rules, they're driving the organization, and new things are always popping up. It just takes people kind of coming together for that cause. So I
Yeah.
hope that for.
The good thing is, although there was the big schism, but I said like people have the fighting, the active fighting died down a long time ago.
Right.
Like the active clashes died down a long time ago. And thankfully, on the most part, no one gets in our way. They were like, again, a lot of people realize their mistake.
Right.
You know, they're like, we messed up. it's your guys' turn, you know, and they support us. So again, I've been bashing the older generation, but you know, at the same time, they admit their mistake and they've passed it on, you
They've
know.
moved over, basically.
They've moved over, you know, they're not saying, and that, like you said, that's the advantage of actually not having a structure, is that we can do whatever we want.
Right.
Tomorrow I can be like, you know, let's have this, let's do a bonfire at the beach. No one's gonna stop me, you know.
Right.
You know, not to bash New Jersey now, but there's more bureaucracy. You have to go,
Yeah.
okay, is it approved? Is it this? We don't
Right.
need any.
Right. Right.
Why do you think when we brought Aslan and Estemir, our friend Askat, you know, he loves it here because he doesn't have to go through any organization. He's like, hey, Tamer, this guy, that guy, you guys want to do a party? Sure, let's do a party, and we
Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
it. You know, there's no, but you know, there's back and forth. You do need some kind of structure. So, so far that's worked for us, but yeah, it's time to continue and actually build something
Right.
lasting. It
Right.
can't all just be, you know, on the whim either.
Yeah. 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 And it takes sacrifice from everybody. It takes dedication,
Mhm.
consistency. These are things that we strive for in our personal life. But we all have something to gain from it. And that's the beautiful part.
Mhm.
I know that there are a few families in Texas, and I'm so like itching. I don't have contact information, but I would love even here to just kind of once a year bring the families together, like,
Mhm.
you know, if we can, like on a lake, a barbecue, something, a joke, just
Anything,
kind of,
anything.
yeah, commemorate like we're Circassians in Texas, you know, that's really cool.
And it's not like it's only one or two families. There's a decent amount. Like you could
Yeah,
have a party, like, you
yeah,
know, 50, 100. I don't know how many exactly, but it's not, you know, it's enough to say like, yeah, it's worth meeting up once a year, twice a year.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that that would be so cool. And then just one more thing before we wrap this up, and I appreciate you. We've gone past the hour mark, and I appreciate you taking all this
No
time.
problem.
But you said something funny about growing up speaking three languages, that it's not one plus one plus one. It's
No.
more like one third plus one third plus one third. So, I mean, I only know two fluently, and I wish I knew three. I wish I knew 15. But as someone who speaks three languages, kind of like, how does that work? Four, okay.
I picked up a decent amount of Spanish in school,
All
so
right, okay,
now a little bit of Russian.
okay.
People accuse me of some of the Caucasian guys that have moved in the last 5 years. A bunch of guys from Caucasus have moved to LA, and we've been hanging out with them, and they speak a lot of the time. They speak Russian. Unfortunately, Circassian as a language is not too developed, and especially like the fluency is not there. You start speaking your native language right away, right? You
Right.
can't maintain too much of it. So they speaking Russian, and I'm the only one that doesn't speak Russian. But slowly over the last couple of years, I started picking up words, and
Okay.
so they'll say something, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're right, this and that," and they're like, "Are you spy? Are you this? Are you?" I'm like, "Oh." But
Actually, yes, I am. So watch what you
maybe
say.
I could be, but yeah, like it's not one plus one plus one. I feel like everyone has the capacity to learn one language, and
Right.
you learn your native language, and then when you add another, you take up the space. The
Yeah.
memory is there's a limited memory,
Yeah.
so you got to delete some to add more. So um,
So are you
to this
deleting
day,
from Spanish now that you're learning Russian, or are you deleting from
English, it goes the other way
English?
around. It goes from your dominant
Okay.
to. I've been told I have an accent.
A
I I
little bit.
I
A little
think so. I mean, think about it. Our parents, it's not their first language, and we grew up listening to our parents. So, and I grew up learning three languages at once.
bit. Wow.
You could see our, home videos like VHS tapes.
Mm.
I look at my friends, and it's like a birthday, and they're all hanging out. Mine, it's like I'm sitting there trying to play a game or playing with toys, and my mom's like, "Say this in Circassian, say this in Arabic, say it in this, say that." It's like, it's a lesson,
Yeah.
so I grew up speaking all three languages, and to this day there's some English words I'm like, what? You know?
That's so
People
funny.
people think I'm like from overseas or something. I know, born and raised.
Wow. I
So
mean, I don't have that obviously experience, but when you mentioned that we learned what our parents spoke, um,
mhm.
my Arabic apparently sounds very Circassian because I
Yeah,
speak my parents' Arabic, which is tinted with their Circassian.
yeah,
So I've had friends who are like born and bred in Damascus. Their family is very, Damascene and everything, and they're like, your Arabic's weird. I'm like, what's
yeah.
weird about it? Like, it's hard. Like, when you
I have
say certain things,
yeah.
it's hard. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I learned from my mom and dad, and I love it. Like, as long as you can understand me, can we, like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I have aunts and uncles. Some were born, pre the war, Jordan, and some were past Jordan, and their Arabic's different. Like
Wow.
sometimes my younger aunts talk to my mom, and mom's like, "What are you saying? Like, I don't even know these words." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, and I mean, my grandparents, their Arabic was not. My Arabic's better than my grandparents'
Yeah.
Arabic. They just spoke Circassian all the time,
Right.
and there's funny stories. My grandparents, Allah yarham, all of them, they
Inshallah.
always, they don't know the male and female, like ta'ali. They tell
Oh,
me ta'ali,
yeah,
this and that.
yeah,
And
yeah. We
this is
have
like
that.
a mess.
So,
So we're gonna pick up the mistakes too,
yeah.
because
Very,
the thing is, yeah, I speak Arabic, but I wasn't trained in Arabic.
mm,
I did go to Arabic school here. I spent a year in Syria, but more or less, like I didn't study Arabic.
right,
Everything I know, I just learned on the fly.
right.
Circassian, same thing. My parents, it's crazy. I was thinking about this the other day. So I taught myself, I had some material and I taught myself how to read and write in the like Cyrillic alphabet and all that. And I was thinking, wow, I'm the only person in my whole lineage that ever like for all we know that ever wrote in Circassian. Sure, it's not our
Right,
script. But like to put Circassian on paper, for all you know,
right.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm the first.
That's
Who
so
knows my great grandfathers and stuff if they knew anything, but like it's so my Circassian. Don't think that my Circassian is anything special. Again, it's relative. People hear me babbling, they think, wow, he's like a poet, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm
yeah,
not like when I went to Kafkas, I was bumbling like an idiot, like I was like I can't keep up.
yeah.
So that's what I mean that it's not 1 + 1 + 1. It's like one and half and this and
Yeah.
third and fourth. So everything has its own level of fluency.
That's very cool, Tamer. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
I appreciate it greatly. I can't wait for people to see everything and hear what you've had to say. Um, Again, I appreciate this so much. I'm glad you were able to join me and take almost an hour and a half.
Before I forget, I forgot I was wearing an Ethiopia shirt.
Hey,
I purposely wore it, but I totally forgot.
I'm
Yeah,
waiting
she
for
gave
her
me
to
the shirt.
send me one. My sister made that shirt for anybody who's
Yeah,
not.
what is it? The
Yeah,
12 tribes.
very cool, very
Yeah,
cool.
she came to the party at the park and she's like, "Can I put a table?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." So
Wow, that's
threw
so
me a shirt.
awesome. My
I
mom
was
is
like, "All right, if you're gonna give me a shirt, I have to wear it for the interview. I
yeah.
have to at least give you guys something,
Uh,
some advertising."
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
when she comes back, she's overseas at the moment, and she says she's gonna send me one. So
Okay,
I'll be wearing them for my next.
that's another thing. Someone has to start doing Circassian items and open up a store and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's not-
for me, I feel the need for our traditional clothing. I I I know it's just like on Eid, for example, everybody's in their cultural clothing, and I shopped
Mhm.
at the mall, and I'm like, ugh, if you guys could just see the
Yeah,
princess that I become when I'm wearing my
we need
clothing.
a movie. We need a movie. We need to bring back like the Braveheart, Last Samurai kind of genre of that time and make a movie.
I know.
It'll be the best. And that's coming from the Super Circassian, but I think it's an objective fact. I think that it would be really cool. We need
It
a
would
movie, like Lord of the Rings trilogy movie.
made by Circassians, endorsed by our historians.
Mm.
Thumbs up from our end. I think you're completely right. media these days is king, and
Yeah.
our youth need it in a progressively modern society where culture seems like an accessory, which it's not, but it seems like it. And I think that media is the fastest and most effective way to touch people's hearts.
Hmm.
That's why I'm on here half the time, just posting things, making things. I'm like, maybe someone will, the right person will see it or something. But thank you so much, Tamer, for everything. I could talk to you all day. I feel like we have a lot to speak
Maybe.
about.
I was joking that I wouldn't come on until you had 1 million followers. So maybe part 2, 1 million
Okay,
followers
a
special.
million followers. You hear
Right?
that?
Everyone hears that. 1 million, and we could do Q&A, and you guys can
All
add,
right.
the extra ones then can continue.
All right. Okay, awesome. So 1 million followers.
Part 2.
Part 2. Okay, Tamer. Well, say hi
All
to
right.
your parents for me. Thank you again. I
Alaikum
hope you have
salam. You
a
too.
wonderful rest of your Sunday, inshallah.
You
Okay?
too. You too. Ya
Yalla,
Allah.
take
Good
care.
luck with everything.
Thank you. You too.